Hello everyone, welcome to Just Tool Basics. Today's video is just kind of an addendum to the Adjustable Jaw Pliers video. I put a link to that video down in the description. But in that video, mostly talk about flat-jawed pliers, which is kind of the typical ones you're going to encounter most of the time. But there are variants and kind of specialty jaw versions of those pliers. This obviously isn't the only example, but I just wanted to kind of give a note on that. So we talked about these guys, which as you can see have a parallel set of jaws, or they try to be parallel, obviously adjustable, but they're flat is the key point. But there are other kinds, such as these, which are designed for round things, so pipes typically. And so these would be for where you don't need as much pressure as a traditional pipe wrench would provide you. There'll be an upcoming video about pipe wrenches a bit, but these are a great option for when you need to deal with especially things that have a smaller diameter than your pipe wrench might be able to handle. These can go down to obviously quite small. I think these are at the top of the adjustment. Yeah, that's about as small as they go, but that's pretty small for putting this much pressure on it. And a pipe wrench, is it's a bigger tool, right? They are flat jawed, but they're designed with leverage in mind to put a very nice amount of pressure on the pipe that you're trying to tighten or loosen. But like I said, we'll get into these in another video. For these, they're where pipe tightness, where you're not as concerned about putting a sufficient amount of pressure, like to maintain high pressure situations. Like if you're literally fitting pipes that need to carry high pressure gases or liquids or something like that, these would be great for either low pressure situations or for things where pressure isn't a problem at all, and you're doing things like making shelves out of black pipe, which is the kind of fittings that I have here as an example. So these are decorative functionally for most people's uses, and getting them tight enough to not be rattly or loose is really the goal, versus having to do fitting tests with soapy water or any sort of leak testing type processes. So what these can do is you adjust them to the height to fit the pipe in the jaws. This is inch and is it inch? No, 3/4. This is 3/4 inch pipe. And that's about as wide as these go. I think that's actually is as wide as they go. They fit around nicely. Let's take that guy off so you can see how they fit. Fit around pretty nicely. And as you can see, it kind of like nestles in that arched upper jaw and then pushes on the bottom. Now, one thing to be aware of when you're using this to tighten, and let's presume we're putting it on this flange, ignoring this end cap. Now, if I was going to try and tighten it around this, I would want to not, so this is a pulling motion here. So as I'm pulling on here, or like pressing hard this way on this bottom handle, the problem with that is that I'm depending on my finger strength to maintain pressure on this bottom jaw, and this bottom jaw is arched in the kind of wrong way. So you're doing focused pressure on that bottom one. So you actually would want to turn this around so that as you're putting pressure on it, your finger weight, or your finger pressure is maintaining that top pressure, and the meat of your hand and your body weight is pushing on this bottom jaw to ensure that that is making as tight a contact as possible. Now, if you're doing this with a very thin jaw, or some other sort of, not sturdy pipe or other round thing, be aware that you're putting a lot of focused pressure with this. So, you don't need to like go crazy with it, but you can see the subtle designs of these handles are made for, this is where the meat of your hand goes. And this little like subtle hook is so that your fingers can grab in the end. It's obviously positioned at the end of the handles to give you maximum leverage. Like that's what it's designed for. So you want to always be pushing kind of down with it, right? So you're transmitting the pressure of this top handle to the bottom jaw for maximum grip. Some other details just to compare to the other channel locks. These are much newer, so that is a a static rivet. If you need to tighten it, you need to put it on an anvil or an anvil on a back of a vise is pretty typical, and hit that to expand it a little bit more. This one is threaded and can be adjusted with pliers. It's not meant to be cranked down, but if it gets too loose, you can do that. It is peened over, so it can't loosen all the way, but it can loosen to the point of being rattly. So if that were to happen in this case, you'd peen that down a little bit further, but again, you don't want to go crazy because you don't want to like lock it up and make it unadjustable. But yeah, similar functionality to this. It's the same kind of arched grooves. You have the same kind of tongue lip thing that adjusts. So same as this, but the jaws are different. And this is one of those cases where, because the jaws are different, which handle receives the dominant pressure actually makes a difference. You can actually see that the handles are designed differently to make that kind of the way you want to use it by comfort. So that's it on this topic. Until next time, this is Just Tool Basics.